All right, guys, we're live doing a follow-up show to the Bottom 8 event that happened yesterday. So we'll just jump right in. Chris, you want to give us a rundown?
Yeah, it was quite a lot of things happened. When I initially saw Ryan, he didn't look that impressive. He didn't. I mean, he's kind of softly built. His hand really doesn't. His wrist is. It looks thick, but his hand really isn't. I don't even know if his hand is average size for his weight. But anyway, so first round, Evan just schooled Craig. I did pull with Craig afterwards, and Craig is fucking strong. But Craig was setting up high, like his hand is built to high hook and to top roll, while he's trying to hook with his arm. So he's kind of his technique was kind of conflicted against Evan, and Evan just capitalized in the strap. I think that
So,
was. Yeah.
so he was strong. Do you think he's close to Evan's strength? Like if they just set up dead center of the table where Craig's comfortable, you think that's
Craig's stronger. Craig has a stronger arm. He just his arm's trying to do one thing, his hand's trying to do the other. It's like he's been training high hook or top roll with his hand, like so back pressure setting up high, but really he's trying to stop Evan's pronation and hook. So he's doing two separate conflicting things, and it puts him in trouble. And I helped him after with it a bit to try to because with Evan. He was getting a good piece of Evan's hand, but in the strap he was kind of doing the same thing, and Evan was just getting what he wanted. So Craig really needed to start not capping, because Craig has a much smaller hand than Evan. So Craig has to stop capping, gripping a little bit lower, and just focusing on stopping Evan's pronation and getting Evan in Craig's hook, not Evan's hook. So that was a little bit deceptive because Craig is super strong.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't see it, but I mean, I believe what you're saying. So no one in Florida could teach this guy how to arm wrestle.
I don't know who he trains with. I know he trains with Chance. I think he trains with Chance, and Chance seems fairly technical. I don't know. Craig feels really good high. He sets up high, but then tries to contain. He doesn't continue with that high game. And of course, Evan has the longer forearm with the longer hand, so I don't know if that's smart. So Craig does so much hand work, but like I told him, I said I don't know how much like containment works with down pressure. So when I talk about containment works symbiotically with down force of your arm. So if you're trying to contain by going high, it's kind of like counterproductive, or you're not using all the parts as well as you can. So I try to show them how when you try to contain with your back fingers, you have to be using that short arm, and you have to be driving down like a pry bar against your opponent's length and pronation. And he wasn't doing that. He was trying to contain with his hand while going up against the longer armed attack style arm wrestler. It didn't make sense. Maybe he was taught well. Maybe he was just in the heat of the moment, and not going on much sleep, because what he told me is the night before everyone was partying and Craig just wanted to get some rest and relax, and everyone's smoking and drinking and having fun. So he might have just been exhausted. So that was 3-0 Evan. And then I felt great. I wasn't running off much sleep, but I never run off much sleep. But I felt great. There was zero inflammation in my elbow. Everything felt amazing. I was focused. Everything was good. Oh, we did have the Calcutta auction. The Calcutta auction is a really interesting thing because it doesn't sound like much, but what the Calcutta auction does, generally, I've been in 5 of them. On average, it gives about $1,000, adds about $1,000 to the winner of the tournament, and puts about $1,000 in the pocket of the spectator who bought the winner with a bid. And so the highest bidders, Ryan went for like $500 to an American. What was his name? Richard Gravel down in Vermont. He bid on Ryan. He got Ryan for about $550. Evan went to somebody else, and that was about. Evan went for $700, I believe. Evan was the biggest bid. So there was
I thought Evan was maybe like 850 or something.
Maybe, yeah. So all the bidding, I went for 100, 170. Everyone went for something. So what you have is you have like $1,800 in this pot. Now, this $1,800, 70% of it went to the Richard who bid on Evan. 20% of it went to the winner, Ryan, which was maybe a 400 or 500. I don't know what it was, probably 200-300, I guess. And then 10% went to the bar, the sponsor, something like that. So that was a great thing. And so the fact that no one bid on me high, I wasn't surprised. So when I go up against Ryan, I was hyper aggressive. I was cutting in. Everything was awesome, and then I just feel that he did not care where I said. He was not fighting me too hard. And then at one point, he just said to the ref, "Let's just start it up." And then in my mind, I'm thinking, this might not bode well for me. And he just basically was not attacking. He was not pronating through my bottom fingers like I assumed he would have. What he did is he just did a full cup through my pronation, lat dragged with semi-diagonal side pressure to pin me. 100% control. I believe we even might have started in a hook, and he could have done the same thing. He could have not really pronated. He wouldn't have pronated, but what he does is he just cups back with lat and then drags, and he does have more side pressure than I give him credit for. He does have a fairly strong arm, but his wrist is very, very strong. So 3-0, no problem.
So I have some comments on that. So
Yeah.
I think my commentary would have been a little bit different. Some of it's the same, but it changed after what he did to Evan.
Oh yeah.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So generally, I would say that it looks like I know why you grab low, but it looks like you should have grabbed higher.
Well, I should have grabbed higher to protect my pronator against his flex, because really it was his flexor against my pronator that got him all the control.
Correct. So,
like I told you before, when I don't think my opponent has any side pressure, I don't have to protect against flexion because I will stop the match. Now, unfortunately, my miscalculation versus him was that he had more side pressure than I gave him credit for, and that combined with his flexor got him the win. So you're right. Also, we talked about whether or not I should try to opt for straps. I think straps, in what he was doing, straps would have helped me. Would it have got me the win? No. There's nothing I could have done. I can tell you there's nothing I could have done with my right arm to get me the win versus him. I'd need to up everything. I'd need to up every arsenal, everything in my arsenal to give him a better match. I thought I was heavier. I weighed in because there was a 165 class, and they made me weigh in. And I weighed in 163 with shoes, hoodie, everything. So I was probably about 158 pounds. He I believe was 215.
Yeah, man, I think Ryan's setup was super comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't, like you said, he didn't try to take a whole lot, but his elbow was toward the front of the pad, and
he definitely looked comfortable.
He had decent hand position. He wasn't super dumped or anything. The refs, I think, kind of let everyone get away with a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought he looked comfortable. I think a higher grip, and again, we talked about this before, WNF rep or something good like that. I'm not saying you could beat the guy, but I'm telling you, it becomes a lot more tricky in the setup and a lot more difficult for Ryan to get to his position. But yeah, and then what's the deal with the weight? Why are you so light?
Maybe it's just I have a shitty Walmart scale here, and it had me at like 170 with my clothes on, but it's a shitty scale. And there they had this really nice digital thing, and I got on it. And when I saw it was a 165 class, I'm like, oh, I'll have to pull 190 because I'm not going to make 165. And then I pulled out my keys and my wallet, and I said, should I take off my shoes? He says, no, get on there. I'll give you a couple pounds because you're wearing your clothes and a hoodie and a toque and all that shit. And so shoes. And I got on at 163 fully clothed, and it was a high end scale. So I said, fuck, I'm lighter than I thought. But it would not have mattered. The whole story of the bottom 8, what I take out of it. Now, when I lost against Ryan, I was distraught. I was not totally distraught because I did everything. My prep was right to where it had to have been. Could I have been heavier? Sure, but it wouldn't have made a difference. All my parts that I needed to be strong or that I wanted to be strong versus him were as strong as they've ever been. I can't ask for anything else regarding my training and my prep. So when I lost with him versus him, I was distraught, but I also knew that, hats off to him. He fucking completely controlled me. Now, when he started pulling Evan.
Well, hey, let's go through the first round.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I'm distraught. I go back and now I still have to pull him left and I still have to pull him the tournament. So I got to get my shit together. But I'm going to enjoy the rest of this bottom 8. And plus, I'm on the B side, so I'll have another match or maybe 2. Now, the next match was the Pumper versus Juji. Juji came out in a beaver mask. You probably saw it. And he just toyed with the beaver pumper.
Looked like a chipmunk mask.
Was it a chipmunk? Whatever.
It was a squirrel mask, but we understood what he was going for.
So that was played out. Now in the fourth match, it was crowded. The tables were not raised. It was all on floor level. I was trying to stand on something, but I couldn't get everything. But it looked like Artem pretty much controlled Laba, and it looked like maybe Laba in the second match hurt himself. I'm not sure. But that went as expected. I don't know how many people, prognosticators had Laba winning that. So anyway, in the second round, go ahead.
You kind of mentioned that Craig might have been affected by some of the partying and stuff like that. Man, what was Laba doing, Jonathan? I mean, I just pictured a lot of these guys just being stupid drunk and high the night before.
I don't know. I from what I gathered, Artem and he had 2 Russians with him, so an entourage. They just ate the Walmart cakes and pizza. Laba was smoking like a chimney and drinking. Craig was just trying to be subdued, quiet, and get focused for the next day. Devin was doing all sorts of pulling, and Ryan was doing a lot of internet stuff and hyping up the event the next day. But a lot of great arm wrestlers there. Well, good, and there was some good arm wrestling done. But man, Craig's a real. I kind of feel bad because Evan's an excellent arm wrestler, but what a colossal prick. Like I'm a prick, but not on the table. And like Craig, I don't know. I just feel bad for Craig because Craig's a real gentleman and he just wants to get his power in. And it was a bad matchup with Evan, but I think with a couple small little adjustments to Craig's training, he can be real good because his arm is fucking strong. We tried to do some stuff afterwards, and of course, I couldn't do anything with his right. I used 2 arms, and he was still pulling me across. Very, very, very strong side pressure and bicep. Since he hurt his left, I guess he's been focusing a lot more on the right. Unfortunately, he doesn't really know how to fight in the strap and the setup. He's not that astute in strap pulling, which he should be because he's got the shorter arm, the smaller hand. He should be a strap master. But Evan just schooled him. But Craig had the strongest arm in the class. He just wasn't able to capitalize on it because of different reasons.
Okay, and then what was the next match going into the second round?
Okay, so now the second round, you had the first loser, which was Craig. I was hoping to pull Craig because Craig would get his power in versus me, and he'd get a good win, and maybe it'd be a good match. Later on, when I pulled him on the practice table, I realized it wouldn't have been a good match. He would have played with me. So it was Craig versus Beaver Pumper, and of course he made it look good, but he beat the Beaver guy easy. Then it was me and Laba. Now I'm excited because you got the smallest guy in the class versus the biggest guy in the class.
Oh yeah, I watched this.
And I feel awesome because I think I can stop Laba, and I'm gonna get my right hand's gonna get a little bit of an ego boost for taking a win off a big semi-pro puller. Anyway, it'd be good for me. But in the first match, he really couldn't get in. He couldn't do anything, and then he kind of like just eased his way down to get pinned, and it seemed to me that he was hurt. And I asked him, and he says, "No, I'm fine." But what he was doing was he was hurt and not telling me out of respect. I wasn't even engaging, and he was just basically trying to make it look good out of respect. But he was obviously hurt. Prior to that match, he had an ice bag on his bicep. I thought, from what I gathered, he tore his bicep. Anyway, so at that point, he started drinking, and he wasn't too happy. What was the next match? The next match, that's the complete B. And then we had Artem and Juji. Now, this should have been, in my mind, a cakewalk, but it wasn't. Juji, I think Juji, did he get a win or... I don't know. Did he pin him via a hook? Yeah, he did get
Artem top rolled him first round.
Yeah.
Then maybe with straps, Juji got him in the hook and then brought him across the table, like pretty easy.
Yeah. And from what I gathered, again, I didn't get a good angle at that match to see everything that went on. But after that match, Juji was holding his arm, and I talked to his coach, and he said that he tore something. So here you have the first 2 rounds, and I'm thinking Laba and Juji both tore their bicep. Which I don't believe is the case. Laba, he seemed much better afterwards. Of course, it could have been the alcohol. And Juji was doing a little bit of after tournament practicing on the table. And so now
on the note of injuries, considering that this is the bottom 8, and considering maybe 6 out of the 8 guys in that event, did anyone not expect people to get injured?
I think
I mean,
people
it's got history written all over it.
I think people were trying. There was people trying to be optimistic, but I think anyone that knows anything anticipated one or two minor injuries. But as we get past the bottom 8 in this discussion, and I talk about the event, there were bad things that happened yesterday, and I'll get into that. That's more significant than what happened in the bottom 8, anyway. But to stay with the bottom 8, I think at this point we've reached the the first round 3 of the setup of Ryan and Evan, and Evan came to me before he pulled Ryan, and I guess he was a little bit shocked that I couldn't even stop Ryan, and I said to him, "You have nothing to worry about, Evan. You'll just play with him," and I believe that because there's a big gap between me and Evan. There's a lot of things, tiers and levels and strength between my right and Evan's right, and Evan's an amazing arm wrestler, and Ryan just out arm wrestled, not stronger than Evan, but he out arm wrestled an excellent arm wrestler who was 288 pounds or something that day. I think Evan took him a little bit lightly in the first or second match, and Ryan just stayed with a game plan. He adapted, he adjusted, and the whole place was going fucking nuts. I mean, the place was just insane. It must have been, I don't know, fucking 180 people in that place just screaming, cameras everywhere, live feeds going everywhere, and I was just after. And of course, once I see Ryan beating Evan, so it went. Evan won the first one. Ryan, they alternated. And then in the 5th match was a good match. Ryan came out and just beat him in the long end. And then I said to myself, all of a sudden I don't feel too bad. Like, this is all about Ryan being really good and being better than most people give him credit for, rather than me being shitty. Like, he really, really, really put on a clinic. So at this point I did not feel bad anymore. I mean, shit. He beat fucking Evan. I can't come close to Evan. So all of a sudden, it's no longer, oh my God, Ryan beat Gobby. Gobby's no good. Ryan's awesome. It's Ryan just stole the show, because the whole thing was about Ryan and Evan. So I thought that was pretty amazing. And for a spectator, just looking at the different styles and the ways that the matches went, there was so much entertainment value I found, and it was just super fun. But hats off to Ryan. The dude can arm wrestle. Can he beat Paul Lynn? Probably not. But he's in the mix. I saw a comment. Someone wanted to see Ryan Bowen versus Herman. Like, let's pump the brakes a bit. Like, looks like Ryan's a tier 3, 198 to 220 puller. That's what Ryan is. Not a 4, a 3, but definitely stronger than I gave him credit for, and very, very astute on the table. Like, an excellent tactician on the arm wrestling table. Yeah.
So, Joe, what were you thinking watching that Bowen and Evan match?
The first round, didn't Evan kind of just slam him a little bit?
Once it went in the strap, Evan just cut through him. Like, it went strap, the buckle was on Ryan's hand, and Evan, I believe, and Evan just with a lot of shoulder, just cut through him, sliced him into a hook and pinned him. Yeah.
I was like, well, okay, that didn't really shock me, but I probably would have dragged it out a little bit longer if I could have, if I was Evan.
Well, I asked him that. That's an excellent point, Joe, because I asked Evan that afterwards, because that's usually what Evan would do in a super match. But what Evan did is Evan tried to bleed him, but Ryan conceded. So Ryan was smart enough not to stay there and get blown away. Conversely, in the second or third round, it was in opposite position, and Evan wouldn't lay down. Evan was stubborn in an open bicep block. Ryan had a high position, and Ryan bled him. Did he bleed him enough to secure the match? Probably not, but he did bleed Evan. So there's another way where Ryan just was more tactical than Evan. I think Evan, in the whole heat of the moment, and maybe in a state of semi-shock that he's not too up playing with him, started getting into a semi-panic and did not want to pin, did not want to concede a pin. Yeah, did not want to concede a pin. Thought he might have been able to cut through, and in that 30 seconds trying to do that, took too much out of his bicep for the matches that were upcoming. So I think that's what that's what happened.
It was crazy. I was shocked, man. Like, Ryan surprised me.
Yeah, major props to that guy. I mean, he deserves credit.
Was that the 5th match where Evan was doing the Louisiana hop over and over again?
Yeah, I don't know what that was for. What was that for? Was that to get the restart, or what was that?
Trying to get the restart. He forgot it was a running foul, and so he was doing the Louisiana hop or the Canadian double foul or super foul, whatever the in the hook guys call it, the Ottawa high hookers call it. But Evan did them all in one shot, and I was watching the replay with my newborn son, and he simultaneously cried and laughed as Evan was super fouling off the front of the pad.
Yeah. Now, the last time I saw this done, this was at Wall 2015 by Mike Solaris. I really, 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 as much as I don't like the Kings move, I think I hate this even more because you realize you're in a position where you can't do anything, but you can potentially hurt your opponent's arm. And I think it's highly, highly, highly disrespectful. And at this point, when I saw this happen, I said to myself, Ryan, I'm Canadian and I like Evan, but Ryan, I said to myself, Ryan, kick his ass. Like Ryan was the more classy, gentleman, respectful puller in that matchup, and the better arm wrestler. I'm all about talking shit and stuff like that, but when the match is happening, if the emotion is genuine, I'm okay with it. But some of the stuff I really don't like. It's good for the spectators and it's a good show. But I do not like the Louisiana hop, as you call it. I do not like that.
I think he did it wrong. Usually, when certain individuals do the Louisiana hop,
they pull back.
They're going back, and they typically win using the Louisiana hop.
Yeah.
Evan did the Louisiana hop, combined it with a super foul, bounced off Ryan's arm 4 or 5 times, made himself look even worse, and then lost the match.
Yeah.
So,
Ryan's a very calm-tempered man. But if that could have been versus a lot of other pullers, and there would have been a fight. That move there, much like when you're in a strap and you win or lose, and you pull your arm straight back when the other guy's attached to you. These things tend to start fights unless the other guy's has a calm, passive demeanor. But I don't like that stuff. If I'm a ref, I'm giving out harsh warnings, and as a ref, I would never tolerate this shit. I would give out harsh warnings and disqualify a puller from the tournament. I do not like this stuff. You can hurt your opponent. It's highly disrespectful, and it's just fucking downright cowardly. I don't know. I don't like it. But I agree.
So my recommendation to Evan is to get in touch with Greg Gray. He can get him in touch with his Louisiana friends to teach him how to properly do the Louisiana hop.
Yeah.
Roger Kang's had a problem with me saying certain individuals. The reason why I say that is because I don't want an estrogen-filled Facebook message coming at me on Monday morning. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
What was next, Gobby?
What's that?
What was next in the event?
Well, you had me and Ryan left-handed super match.
Wait. So we didn't get to the finals yet.
Oh wait, no, sorry. I keep thinking that was the finals because it was the most prolific.
It was so good. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So next you have Evan's done. The way the format works is if you win your first match, you continue. But if you win your first match, lose your second match, you're eliminated. If you lose your first match in your B bracket, if you win, you're done. But if you lose, you keep going because they wanted to find the top, the winner and the biggest loser type thing. So because I beat Laba, I was eliminated in the second round right away. I only had 2 matches. Same thing went for Evan. So now you have Juji was done. What was the last? Oh, so now you have Beaver Pumper versus Laba for the bottom of the bottom 8, the biggest loser. And Laba, we all know at this point he's injured. The degree of his injury is unsure, but the Beaver Pumper got a little bit of a piece of his hand. Laba had to flop wrist. I don't know if you saw that match, but there was a whole lot of ugly, and I'm thinking to myself, I like Laba. If he loses this match, he's got to switch sports. So part of me was rooting for Laba. Part of me was rooting for Laba. And if the Beaver Pumper won, because we see so much shit on Facebook from him, self promotion, and he's never won a match. Could you imagine beating a 300-pound semi-pro puller? I mean, this guy would be on Facebook more than athletes are on cereal boxes, right? It would be insane. So I was like, Laba, man, just get this done and let's secure the balance of the sport back. Like, and he won, but it was ugly and then holding his arm. But man, there was so much. Like, that's the great thing about the sport. You put 8 people in, and even if you compare the top 8 to the bottom 8, the top 8 was it fairly went as people predicted. The bottom 8 was such a clusterfuck, and predictions and our bracketology was all. We did the brackets yesterday, all three of us, and Herman had 3 brackets going, different possibilities, and just all out of whack. Like March Madness basketball tournament, just everything can be fucked up so easily. And that's even though the degree of arm wrestling or the degree of talent was a lot less than top 8, the degree of shock and unpredictability was so much higher, which I thought boded well for the event. I'm happy to be part of it, and I thought it went. Devin, I think, was ecstatic with how it went. I think Ryan winning was probably one of the better, or Juji, you can argue, but in terms of the real arm wrestlers, Ryan winning was maybe the best case scenario for Devin. And the guy ponied up $1,000 of his own money, so it's kind of cool when the guy with the most confidence ends up winning. It just adds to his credibility. But yeah, fucking Laba. The rest of the night, Laba was just drinking. Almost got into a couple fist fights. Evan drunk, almost got into a couple fist fights. I mean, welcome to the bottom 8, right? You're getting like the thuggery and the fucking a lot of stuff going on. Yeah.
All right, and so then it was you and Ryan left-handed?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm thinking to myself, man, he looked so amazing right, and I didn't do anything with him. Now, yes, his right's better and my left's better, but in my mind, I'm thinking, it will not change my approach. It will not change anything. But now there's a scenario where the gap is so big between him and I right, it's conceivable that I can lose this match. His wrist is so strong. And don't forget, the only part of my right that's better than my left is my containment. So I see scenarios in my mind leading up to a couple minutes before I have to get on stage or approach the table where I can lose. But no matter how much anxious or how nervous I get, it never affects my performance or confident I get. I just always do what I have to do, and everything else plays out. And so in the first match, he was trying the same thing he tried with the right. The difference was my side pressure is much stronger in my left than my right, and his is much less on his end. And so I was able to just really, when they said go, even though he got a little piece of my hand, I was able to just push sideways and just take him right out of everything he was trying to do and pin him. He was trying to do a lot of different things. Now in the second match, I was so confident that no matter what happened to my hand, my side pressure would come through and get me the win. But he was still trying a lot of things. He posted a lot higher, and I wasn't fighting his thumb. He was going over my thumb, but I was okay with that. And so I didn't hit as well. I didn't engage as well. In the second match, he took a piece of my wrist, and it didn't go back, but he straightened it out, and he was going his way. And then my back fingers combined with my side pressure just threw him back in and pinned him. In the third match, he wasn't quite ready to concede, and he tried something. And I said to the ref, he can go over my thumb. I'll let him go over my thumb, or I'll let him bow in. Like he likes to, because his move is a lat drag back with pronation, and a deep cup. I don't like him starting with a little bit of a carve. So I said to Jeff, you can let him start with a carve under my thumb knuckle, or straight wristed over my thumb knuckle. But I will not let him get both. I will not let him take 2 lanes of advantage over me. You can give him 1. I'll concede him 1 because I don't want to be there for 10 minutes. And so he straightened his wrist. He was way high on my thumb, but it didn't matter. And then I pinned him. Now I read afterwards that I elbow fouled and my elbow was floating and I cheated and I couldn't beat him. If I kept my elbow on the pad, I had no chance. All these Australian guys. And then I looked at the video this morning when Artem released it, and I said, yeah, that's not a fucking elbow foul. I mean, that technically could be called a foul, like waff, but that's not a foul that prevents me from winning any matches, right? That's just
yeah, no.
Correct. That's not. Go ahead, Joe.
No.
I didn't even see the foul until it was mentioned. I looked and I was like, well, maybe, like you said, if you want to be super strict, maybe foul, but
yeah, waff, it's a foul.
Rerun it.
Yeah, as Lottie, it's a foul. But I could have let him drive hard. I could have planted my elbow, looked at him, and swung him just like he could have done with me the right. There was so much discrepancy between my left and his right and my right that nothing really mattered. It played out.
Did you use a riser, Chris?
No, I didn't use a riser. The riser I brought for if anyone tried to king me. If anyone tried to king me, I was going to go on the riser because the riser I can get fucking 4 inches taller and I can press down on their king bullshit.
Do you use a riser normally or no?
I use a riser when there's so much inflammation in my elbow that I can't engage sideways. So what I do is when I want to practice and work certain things, I get on the riser. What the riser does is takes my side pressure when I'm off the riser. Mostly 70% comes from my elbow and 30% comes from the interior rotation of my delt. A taller arm wrestler is the opposite. A taller arm wrestler the majority of side pressure will come from their delt and a little bit less from their elbow, obviously depending on their style too. So when I have to protect my elbow because it's so badly inflamed, I get on a riser just so I can minimize the elbow and add more shoulder to my attack. There's still pain, but at least I'm somewhat useful and I can still get somewhat of training involved. The riser is ultimately maybe what I should be on all the time, but I'm not yet adept to it. I can defend really well, but I just can't transition well with the riser. If I used a riser versus Ryan Wright, nothing would have changed. If I would have used it left, the match would have been prolonged. He would have hit me, and I would have stopped him. But to transition to the pin would have taken upwards of 10, 15 seconds. It's a lot harder for me to transition to the pin when I'm higher because so much of my move comes off my pec. My pec is such a huge driving force in with my elbow when I go sideways. That
Do you feel you elbow foul more or less with a riser?
Oh, less, because with the riser I'm higher and there's down pressure and my weight is leaning on my elbow. So
Okay,
so
that's what I thought.
and I'm higher, so I can bring my elbow back. When I'm shorter on the table, my elbow is always starting at the front of the pad, like borderline. I'm almost borderline fouling. I borderline foul every match when I'm off the riser, only because I'm starting in that open. And the freedom table we used yesterday, it's not a freedom table, it was a standard table, but it's higher, it's half an inch higher than a standard table, and the pin pads were 3 inches opposed to 4, but the elbow pads were half an inch thicker, which means I'm even lower than I would on a standard table.
Yeah.
But luckily, which also means I could use a heck of a lot more pec. It aids my attack and it hurts my defense. Luckily, my defense never came into play in the bottom 8 because I couldn't stop any match right, and left. It never even got to my bicep because it never got really past center with Ryan left. Right, as soon as he started engaging, I just flew onto the attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been pushing the riser on Gobby probably for a year.
Dude, I'd use it every time if I were you, man.
Well, I mean, it has to be. I've been pulling 14 years in a certain way, and now when I get on the riser, you're thinking, oh, everything's the same except you're 4 inches taller. Not the case. It throws all the biomechanics and the connection off kilter and the neuromuscular connections and the comfort levels. So I'd have to be on it for maybe 2 years straight. Now I look at Vazkin. Vazkin's always either on a riser or something like that, or he's my height. Simon Barachoa was roughly my height, always on a riser or with his shoes, and they were level 4, high level 4 pullers. So it's probably where I have to go.
I have 2 different sized risers that we have for practice and that we'll have for the event in October.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a good event.
Yeah, another comment on the double fouls and the complaints from Australians. It's a Devin Laird event. It's a Ryan Bowen event. The whole point is to show they were never going to call those fouls. And you can't complain about those fouls on the opposite side of Ryan if you're not going to complain about Ryan's setup, right? So you can't pick and choose, what you're going to call and what you're not going to call.
Yeah. Okay, so it looked like Ryan started with some kink right here almost all of his matches.
He loves that. His move.
Dude, that's what I like. Yeah. That's exactly what I like. Yeah. So when I saw that, I was like, man, I never get away with that. Ever.
Yeah. I actually, in our right-handed match, when you look at setup and stuff, I even out arm wrestled him in the setup, but he was so much better. It didn't matter, but or maybe he didn't give a shit. But I was able to manipulate the ref to give him a foul, and I was leading out to the ref giving him a second foul, so I can at least get a win on him without even starting the match. But Ryan had adjusted and just let me get everything I want, and then
I liked his setup. The setup that he got, I was like, I would love that setup.
Yeah, he's yeah. Another thing too is Devin. This I wasn't a big fan of, but for the whole event, bottom 8 and the tournament, we ran one solo ref, so no back ref. Which, how can you do that when there's money involved, right? Because so much gets lost. But anyway,
there was only an up ref, head ref, no down ref,
no down ref the whole night. But anyway, like Herman said, it wasn't about calling the micro fouls. It was about it was all about putting on a show. Which I
would have taken a whole lot more than for sure.
Yeah. But like I said, no matter how you change the rules, no matter how it would never have changed the outcome. Ryan was winning the right. I was going to win the left. Nothing else would have changed that. And then when I read the comments this morning, they're like, "Oh, Ryan's better right, Chris is better left." That's the end of the story. Well, it is and it's not.
Captain Obvious.
Because it is and it's not, because he beat my right. But let's say hypothetically Ryan had to get down to 175. Ryan would not beat my right. Right. So is he a better arm wrestler than me, pound for pound, in his weight class? Is he better at 220 than is his right better at 220 than my left is at 154? No, it's not. My left is a very good arm at 154, and he's proving that his right is a very good arm too at 200 to 220. But I still, I still think I'm the better arm wrestler pound for pound. But he sliced up my right. There's no doubt about it.
So let's talk Ryan a little bit. So him beating Evan is driving certain conversations. Like Ryan should pull me. Ryan should pull Paul in, which I think he already lost to Paul, and he lost to Dan Mosier. So was it so much that Ryan's improved that much since pulling Dan, or was Evan drunk and high, and that's what
I was wondering.
No, good question. Evan came in very, very strong, healed. The way he just outed Craig confirmed that. And Evan usually is a guy when it comes to, there was $2,000 or $3,000 on the line. Well, 2,000 for him. For Ryan, it was 1,000 because he ponied up his own 1,000. So when there's money involved, Evan's you get, he's excellent and prepared. So I think you have to give more credit to Ryan. Now, I think something happened with Ryan in the last 6 months, 8 months, horsepower wise. Because what the matches I saw even last year with him and Paul Lynn, man, I would have done better than that. Like I would have done better than how I did. So I think something has happened, or he's done something. I'm not saying he's juicing, because his body absolutely does not look like that of someone who's juicing. But
that doesn't matter though.
No, right?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
So maybe he's on something, or maybe he just adapted, or maybe he's just coming into his own. It doesn't matter to me. And I'm really going to start paying attention to who he pulls, just for ranking's sake and just for my own mind. But I can't, I'd like to see him pull some of the top 198 guys. The difference between Paul Lynn and Dan Mosier, who are top 198 guys, and I believe maybe Ryan can give them a better match. Could he beat them? I don't know. There's still probably a little bit of a gap, but he's in the conversation, I'd say. But when you start talking about him versus Herman. Herman's not a 198 guy. Herman sits at 220, sometimes 230, 240 even. And Ryan's not going to capitalize on Herman's wrist. And the side pressure difference between Herman and Ryan is a massive tier. So at least. So yeah. So it's but would I like to see him pull some of the top 198 guys, or even get on a wall card? I don't know, like an undercard. Sure, he deserves it. Like, he's doing good stuff. He's traveling. He's a super driven promoter. So why not? He deserves it.
Ryan Bowen versus Brandon Ellsesser.
Yeah, so that's a heck of a match. I think Ryan's a little bit too versatile, and I think I'd give him the edge versus Brandon. I think he's a little bit more versatile. He's a little bit tighter in his technique. Brandon's kind of like all over the place. Both are versatile, but Ryan's versatility is a little bit more mechanically sound than Brandon's versatility.
Yeah, Brandon will break down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who would be.
Barnett. Ah, man.
Well, no. Seth is a left machine. Seth would destroy him left, and Ryan would beat him right. He's left dominant.
Really, though? You think he'd beat him right?
I don't know, but I'd give the edge to Ryan over Seth right. But I could be wrong.
So we have one comment down here suggesting Britt Rockers versus Ryan Bowen.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
But here's the kicker. Yeah. Ryan had no clue who Brent Rockers was, or Alan Ford, when I talked to him about 6 months ago. Okay. So I think this would be awesome.
Yeah. I think Allen Ford is a good match. Ryan versus any 198 guy, and Ryan having to get down to 198 or 205, whatever, is a good match. The problem is if Ryan starts seeking out 220 guys, because now 220 guys who weigh 230 come down are a lot more built and strong and have more muscle mass than Ryan. Ryan is not a muscular guy.
So, what do you think now, Ryan versus Brendan?
Oh, Brendan beats him.
Still beats him easy?
Yeah, no, not as easy as I thought, of course. But Brendan's like I said, he's a 230-pound guy coming down. Even if they met at like 225, Ryan needs his wrist. Ryan, much like many arm wrestlers, needs wrist control in the control that he covets. Against Brendan, I don't believe he gets it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Brendan is a very, very, very good arm wrestler when he gets his hand position. But Brendan is a very, very, very good arm wrestler when he doesn't get his hand position, which is a rarity. We don't see that often. How would Ryan pull it if he loses his wrist or if he doesn't get what he wants? He pulled it out versus Evan, but a marginally fatigued Evan. I'd love to see that match, but I give the edge to Brendan only because Brendan's strength, arm and hand all over the table, is more balanced than Ryan. I don't think Ryan can do that tight, tucked defensive lock for a minute like Brendan can and wear out his opponent to the point where he can come back around. And if he can, I've never seen it. We didn't see it yesterday. He always had relative hand control, and his elbow was relatively at the back of the pad with his opponents. What would happen if his elbow's at the front of the pad and he's chasing his opponent? We don't know. Can Ryan's bicep do that? We don't know. But we know Brendan can, and Brendan's 220, 230. And there's part of me that thinks Evan just, once he started losing steam or lost his confidence, everything just self-destructed because he was so confident and he had so many people in the crowd, Canadian favorite, this and that. I think that when things started going south for him, there's a possibility that he did not have the sense of mind or the focus at the moment to reestablish and recalibrate and just get back into it. He started getting in like a semi-panic mode and his technique chased that rhythm. But I don't know. But I'm still going to give the credit to Ryan. He deserves it. And don't forget, we're talking about a 285-pound 3 versus a 215-pound, what I thought was a 2, was obviously a 3, beat a 285-pound 3. Like that, it's impressive. And I'm not going to take any credit away from Ryan. It makes really good conversation to what can Ryan do now. Can he beat Brendan? Can he give Paulin a match? Can he beat Paulin? Can he maybe give Herman a match? Like, I don't think so. But these are now arguments that the arm wrestling world can discuss and funnel through and navigate through. And Ryan's earned the right to be in these discussions because of that, a win on a tier 3, 285-pound, excellent arm wrestler.
Yeah. It looked like Evan beat him the early rounds pretty much just with side pressure. And then when his side pressure gassed, it was...
Ryan pulled Evan the way Devin would pull a stronger opponent. Right? Ryan has Ryan's hero is Devin, and he studied the way Devin pulls, and he's not far off. Minus, we haven't seen Ryan get into the king move, but Ryan played a very, very smart, patient, tactical game versus a little bit more of a pressing Evan. Wanted to get it done. The more that match went on, and the more the crowd, you can see the crowd so confident with Evan, and then as each dying minute goes by, you can see that the momentum from Evan was slowly shifting to Ryan, and Ryan was never panicking. Ryan's money's on the line. Ryan's, he's a huge underdog versus Evan, and at no point did Ryan ever panic. And of course, Evan's shouting in his face like Evan does. Evan's trying to intimidate him, and he's just staying there subdued, totally focused. And I think over his ability, arm wrestling ability, I was a little bit more impressed with his ability to just keep absolutely focused, like in a zen-like state, while 100 plus people are screaming, cheering for Evan, and Evan's in his face, and Evan's trying every trick in the book. So even though Ryan's strength is better than I assumed, Ryan's level of focus is really, really impressive. So give him credit regardless. And now moving forward, we can all discuss and maybe anticipate a good matchup coming forward with him. Who knows?
All right. So next was the Freedom Arm Wrestling Tournament.
Yeah, 0 to 165. There were 3 classes right, 2 classes left. The left classes were 0 to 200, 200 above. All classes had like 20 plus people. Right, there was a bunch of novices and amateurs. So anyway, after the bottom 8 ended, there was like a 3-hour break before the tournament was going to start. So people were drinking, having fun. And now in the middle of this bar, you have the regular table and the Freedom table open for anyone just to jump on and play with. And I see, and you got to understand that 70% of the room is novices. First timers people driving from Vermont, all over Canada, just to see the bottom 8 and see Devin and this and that, and see Ryan. And so you have these novices on the Freedom table. Now you guys have yet to see a Freedom table, but let me tell you something. When you get eerie of watching 2 novices on a regular table and you're kind of like, oh, this is going to end, when you see them on the Freedom table, you can multiply that by 5. Because now all of a sudden, when someone's in a semi-break arm and his elbow comes off the pad, well, the match stops, they restart. So, potential damage was mitigated. But now all of a sudden, when they're in a break arm position, instead of stopping the match when their elbow would come off the pad, he could come across the table, come across the guy, put his shoulder across, and instead of putting 8 or 10, 15 pounds of pressure on that,
super break it.
Yeah. And so, sure enough, the man that was generous enough to donate the $1,000
Gold coin.
He had his arm. He broke his arm, and I didn't know this. No one saw it. But at one point, he was outside of the bar. And, and the ambulance and people were. And I went out to see what was going on. He was in such shock that his face was completely ghost white, like he had no blood in his face. And then Devin was helping him out, and everyone was talking to him, and he slowly got the color back, and the ambulance came. And then I saw pictures of him come out this morning. He's okay. But he's from Edmonton. He flew out for this event to just never arm wrestled before, just to support and try to get into it. And probably, the worst candidate to break his arm yesterday was him. But I feel part of the blame. Whenever an arm breaks on a novice, I feel there's always a little bit of there can be blame to be spread around. In this case, I think a little bit of the blame. I saw this all day. There could have been 15 arm breaks yesterday, and it wouldn't have shocked me. Easily. I walked around for a large time last night, walking around with my sole purpose to prevent arm breaks on practice tables. I would walk around and say, nope. And they said, well, why are you stopping the match? Because his arm's 3 seconds from busting open, breaking. Really? Yeah. So
how many tables were there?
There was 2. But it doesn't take many freedom tables to break an arm. And when people are jumping on and off for hours on end, it doesn't take much. And so we don't even know for sure if the guy who broke his arm was on the freedom table. Devin wasn't sure, and I wasn't sure because no one I know saw it. We just know he broke his arm. But I'm believing from what I see, it was on the freedom table. Fast forward into the event, there was a women's class. So you had a woman who's been pulling for a couple of years, pulling heavy. She's about maybe 160 pounds. Alan Ford's wife, pulling against a very, very 105, 110 pound girl. Now I'm watching this match, and it's on the freedom table, and the bigger girl gets all position, and the other girl gets into a defensive, flat wristed, semi hook type thing with zero shoulder involved, zero type of, and she just starts to pivot, and because freedom, your back of the wrist has to hit the table. You can be in a break arm position for a minute before the match stops. When on a regular table, that match would have been a pin. So I walk right up. Everyone's watching. The ref has full control, and her wrist is maybe half an inch from the pin, but from the table pad, but it's not being called. And I walk up and I stop the match as a spectator, and I said, "The match is over." I looked at Jeff and I said, "She won." The other girl was not. It was the first time on the table. Now at this point, Alan Ford's wife slaps me, but slaps me in the shoulder, not in my face. She kind of pushes my shoulder in angst and anger. Jody Lorette comes in and explains to her, and Jody and Devin both told me, you did a good thing. Jeff told me you did a good thing. Many people thought that was break arm, and that was as break arm as I've ever seen a fucking break arm. And I'm happy I stopped it. Later on, she came and talked to me, and she says, I don't like that you stopped it because I thought you did it because we were women. And I said, I've stopped many matches as a spectator, men and women. I remember years ago I was at a tournament, and there was a 16-year-old, and I told her this after. There was 2 16-year-olds pulling in the kids' class. This one in Vermont, I believe. Vermont or New Hampshire. And one kid, both novice, and one kid was in a break arm. And I was in the second row, and I got up and I stopped the match. And I said to the ref, give that guy the win. He was in a dangerous position. The mother of the child came and saw me and gave me shit. The ref gave me shit. The mother started yelling at me for giving the other guy the win and having to concede her son. She gave me shit. She was yelling at me. I said, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Anyway, that was the first loss for the kid. He gets back in, he makes his way back up to the semifinals and breaks his arm. Same thing. And then I said to myself, I will stop as many matches as I want to stop as a spectator, with novices, not pros, obviously. And if they don't like it, I don't really give a shit. I'm just not. I don't like watching arms break on new people because new people don't know what we know. Novices do not know. They do not know the gravity, and they do not know the risk. We know the risk. Even amateurs 3 years in know the risk. A novice does not know the risk, and he thinks everything's fine. And it's our duty as pullers, refs, whatever, when they get into this position, just to say, listen, man, I'm going to give you the loss, but I'm going to show you the proper technique, and you're going to learn. And it seems like I'm an asshole, but a break arm is just not good for the puller. It's not good for anyone watching. It's not good for anyone. Some of them can't be prevented. Many can be prevented. And I think sometimes as pullers or spectators, we can't be shy. We have to stop, whether it's being on a practice table or an official competition table. I think I'm always going to do that. And I've done it maybe 6 times where I just stop the match and people are getting mad at me and I don't care. I think I know when a break's about to happen. And some people say, well, that's not really an arm break. Yeah, technically it's not an arm break, but many of the arm breaks we have are not technical, are not quote unquote break arm position. But you can just see when there's tension, and you can almost see the flexion of the bone, the slight flexion of the bone, and the body's not following. And at that moment, I'm like 2 seconds, 1 second break. If I can get
skin
to that,
gets discolored on that upper part of the arm.
And if I can get to that table and stop it, and there's a lot of times I'm looking at a match and I'm looking at a friend, and I look away and we start smiling, and he's like, "It's gonna happen." I'm like, "Fucking right, it's gonna happen." Like you can just, the more you get into arm wrestling and the more you see things and you've seen arm breaks, I think Herman and you can both agree that there's like you almost see it happening. You can almost anticipate an arm break.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah. 100% agree with that. So, I've seen a lot.
Yeah. So the fact that we only had one arm break yesterday, I think was almost a blessing because there could have been so many. I must have seen 100 matches in a break arm position, practice table, warm up table, and competition table. So many novices.
Sounds like there was more drama though. You were talking about. Where's that?
Oh, well, just Laba ended up pulling. Evan and Laba ended up pulling in the heavyweight class, and there was so many. Every class was stacked, but every class had 80%.
Right-handed?
No, Laba pulled left. Sorry, Laba only pulled left.
Oh, I was like,
so
what's he doing?
Even though every class on the freedom table was heavy, like we're talking 20 to 25 pullers per class, 18 of them were novices, like straight out of the green novices, first tournament, second tournament type thing. And I saw Laba, drinking and like flipping. He came around the table and flicked the kid's ear. Because you can do that. You can come around the table on freedom, and when he took his offhand off the table, which are allowed, and started flicking the kid's ear, and I'm like, dude, stop being a fucking asshole. Like, Laba's a real good guy, but good guys sometimes with enough alcohol can be colossal pricks. But the kid was fine. The kid wasn't upset, and Laba talked to him afterwards. But like, I'm a fan of entertainment and putting on a show, but I really don't like when people get overly aggressive due to alcohol consumption. Like, I find that's just so fucking. It never leads to anything good, and it's infantile.
No, it doesn't.
But anyway, no harm, no foul. It was just a really exciting, drama-filled day, evening, long. I drove through the night to get home. Probably consumed about.
Who won 165?
I won it, but I had a huge war. Like, again, so Matt Smith, who's a fairly good local Ontario 150, 154, 165 guy, he has a press. He pressed me. I caught him. Now, of course, I drag him back, but of course, freedom, you have to put the wrist onto the table. So we had like 2 minutes of pulling. He beat me one match. I had to come back and beat him twice, which I did, which totally fatigued the right-hand side of my body, like my pecs and everything. And throughout the whole, pulling Ryan right and left, my whole body.
So that was right-handed that you beat him.
So I won the class right. Got me $100. I made $1,000 yesterday. So that got me $100. And then left was fun because left was a 0-200 with Artem. I really, really wanted to pull Artem. So I win my first 5 matches. Artem's running the A. I'm running the A. Artem looked good all day. Filming, pulling, super nice guy. I have nothing bad to say. Artem, he just seemed like an absolute gentleman, technician on the table. And so I get in a couple big matches with a couple of heavier 200-pound guys, and fatigues my arm. But then I get a good rest for Artem. And I said to Devin, we're 4 left in the class. Do I get Artem? He says, yeah, you Artem. And so I pull Artem, and Artem just flashed me. Later on, he claimed it was a false start, but I also believe I tried to false start with him. We're two guys trying to false start. He just had a little bit more mustard and dragged me right to. And of course, we're talking about we're not talking about a 3-inch drag. We're talking about an 11-inch drag, and I just didn't. Could I have done anything if him and I had a super match and we're both fresh? I don't know, but he just took me to school. So he goes to the A side and he pulls a local called Doug Hogan, who was 6-7 years in the sport. This kid was nothing for the first 3-4 years, like novice, amateur, couldn't win anything. And lately, he's really been picking up steam, and he just dusted Artem. That's the
match I saw. Okay.
Yeah, and Artem was like in a little bit of shock, and this kid just and Artem at this point was not fatigued, right? Artem did not have any. He went right through me, so it didn't fatigue him, and this kid just dusted him. In the 200-pound middleweight right-handed class, Artem got to the finals or close to the finals versus another local Ontario puller named Don Smith, who's not the strongest guy in the world, but just a fucking warrior. Just never gives up on in anything. And Artem took him to where he needed to. This guy never ever gave up and just came out and beat Artem. I don't know if Artem took second or third, but I know he didn't win that class. So I think Artem.
I think he got second both times.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah, second and second. But I mean, it's a hard day too when you're filming steady. Not eating, not drinking, filming steady, taking pictures steady, answering questions steady, and then you get called to the table and you got to pull.
No shit.
But even though he didn't win either of those classes, I was super impressed with Artem. Artem gave Ryan a really good match in the finals as well. Like there's a certain point where I thought Ryan's match with Evan was fatiguing enough for Artem to come back and win this. So it was really cool.
I don't think I saw him and Artem pull.
Yeah, and Artem. Maybe
I did.
He might. There were times where he was out arm wrestling Ryan. Like he did some very, very intelligent stuff on the table. Yeah, Artem looked really, really good.
I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, there's your basic recap. Talking about having another one. I think for the purpose of what John Milne and Devin wanted to do, I think they succeeded. Like you said, is it real arm wrestling? Is it where we need to go? I don't know. But it was maybe one of the funnest, most exciting.
They should have it in the States so more people can go.
But it was about as funnest and most excitement I've ever had at a tournament. And my body's just an absolute. I must have pulled 30 matches. I also pulled Juji Mufu left-handed on the practice table afterwards, and he beat me. Now he was taking a high hook, but I can tell you this: his left hand, his hook power, Juji right and left, his straight hook power. Not to get into the hook and this and that, but his straight hook power with the amount of delt strength that he has, pec strength. He's got really strong parts. I don't think he'll continue in the sport. Right after the bottom 8 was done, he just left. Right, didn't stay for the tournament. Ryan either. After the bottom 8, they both went off and went to Juji's hotel and they did some marketing stuff. I think Ryan's trying to get Juji on board to his pound for pound, but they did not stay. Evan and Laba stayed. Artem stayed. We all talked to everyone, pulled, answered questions. Fans asking them to sign their shirts and young guys all in awe. I mean. These guys are not LeBron James, but for a beginning arm wrestler, a lot of these guys they look at them in awe. So I think it would have been nice for Juji and Ryan to stay at the tournament and like talk to young guys and answer questions and pull and support the event, but they bolted. And in Evan and Laba and Artem and in my case, and even the Beaver Pumper, we all stayed, and we stayed from our bottom 8 ended at 4 or 5. We stayed till midnight to support, participate, and compete in that event, and talk to people and young people and answer questions and a lot of selfies, all that bullshit, camera work for Facebook, all that stuff. People were taking pictures and videos. So big props to Artem, Laba, and Evan. That even after they stayed for what they were paid to stay for, they stayed and had fun and talked to people and pulled and just had a ball. Right. So I give them credit for that, and I just wish Juji and Ryan would have stayed just to help promote the event. And the people that showed up for that event weren't necessarily showing up to pull on the freedom table, and they showed up to kind of see Ryan and see Juji and see the more popular guys, and you can't do much with those guys during the bottom 8 because they're focusing on the tournament. And when tournament ends and they just go, and they're like, well, I kind of feel you're cheating the fans. Anyway, that's their prerogative, and I don't hold anything against them, and it doesn't affect my respect level for either of those guys. They're both. Juji's a remarkable athlete, and Ryan's a good promoter and a very good arm wrestler. But it was a fun day. Yeah. It's just a question of how. Sorry, go ahead.
I said, let's wrap it up unless you had another final thought.
Oh, the only thought I really have is trying to think on my way home. I had a 5-hour drive on the way home, and I was just thinking of, can freedom be the future of arm wrestling? I'm just, man, bad days, good days, go 0-4, win money, beat your buddies, lose to your buddies. Man, fucking break arms are shitty. We've all seen them. When you see a guy in utter shock, you never see a guy break his arm and he's like, no fucking big deal, I'll be fine. Let's go get, it's always the person's in a state of shock. It's a newbie. And I think there's ways we can minimize arm breaks in the sport. And I believe it's not official, but I believe that freedom minimizes a pro puller from hurting himself whether it's a bicep tear, because he has so much more maneuverability and flexibility in how his body moves on the table. Conversely, the freedom increases the injury of a new guy, because he does not know how to move. And it gives him more flexibility. It's like putting a kid that does not know how to drive a Ferrari, put him in a small little parking lot. He can't really hurt himself. But give him that Ferrari and put him on a NASCAR circuit, like a big fucking, he's going to kill himself. That's what freedom does. It offers more territory for someone that doesn't know how to navigate the territory with a very dangerous piece of equipment, which is an arm versus an arm and a susceptible bone. So I've been thinking a lot about the freedom thing, and I'll always participate. I'll always support. But if I ran an event, there's no way in hell I would choose a freedom table. I think it's and you can't have an event and you can't do, okay, guys, for the novice event we're going to have a standard table, and for the pros we're going to bring in the freedom table. You couldn't do that with two separate types of rules. You can't do that. So I don't think it has a big future in our sport, and I think that's a good thing. And on that note, that's about it.
All right, guys. I guess we'll try to get a show in later this week on our normal schedule. I'll talk to you guys later.
Take care.
Later, guys.